Glory be, and welcome back to another episode of Q Points Podcast. I'm DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is Jay Ray, sometimes known by my governments as Johnny Ray Cornegay III. Glory be to you too, Sir Daniel.
Welcome all. It's Q Points Podcast, the podcast dropping the needle on Black music history. Jay Ray, what's good?
Man, I am just hanging out and excited, and it's been a busy week. I've been doing a lot of heavy technology stuff this week, which I actually do love, although sometimes it can be really frustrating. But that's been cool. I'm learning a ton. How are you?
I am fantastic. Full transparency, yesterday I was in one of those moods, one of those funks where you just don't feel like you have it to give, whether it's to the job, whether it's just to even leave the house. Yeah. And sometimes you just have to ride that out. And I'm glad I did. And I made it to another day, and it's been excellent. I was super excited to get on this mic and to record this latest episode of Q Points because, there is not a lack of material for us to cover, as you the listeners can probably tell, because you're probably saying to yourself, those two, they make a show out of everything and anything. Yes we do, because it needs to be explored. And that's what Q Points does. We drop the needle on Black music history, and tonight will be no different. But J Ray, we got some business to take care of before we get to that. So what is going on?
So first and foremost, y'all heard it at the top. We will be at Afros and Audio next week for the festival. Excited. And is that dope? We will be there next week for the festival in Baltimore. So make sure you check out your boys if you are planning to be in the Baltimore area, or you're in the Baltimore area. Let us know you're there, because we would love to see you. So that's one thing. But also, we want you to stay up with Q Points, so you can certainly do this. You are here with us. We got a lot of folks checking in with us this evening. Let us know where you are checking in from. We would love to hear from you. But yes, subscribe wherever you are listening or watching. That's really important. You can become a member on our website at qpoints.com by clicking the subscribe button. You could join our newsletter as well at magazine.qpoints.com. And you can shop our store at store.qpoints.com. All of these things are really dope, but the main thing is listening, subscribing, and sharing. Those are absolutely free. They're amazing things to do, and we really, really, really love it when y'all do that. So that's what's up.
We absolutely love and appreciate that. Yes, remember those three pillars that J Ray just said.
There are two types of people in the world: those who complain about the state of today's music, and those who dig. I'm Jason Randall Smith, and I invite you to check out Radio B-Sides, Both Sides of the Surface, a music podcast championing the work of independent artists from around the way to around the world. With a primary focus on Creative Commons licensed music, think of this show as a never-ending virtual crate dig through a parallel universe of online labels, seeking out the hip-hop, soul, jazz, funk, and electronic music gems that are often hiding in plain sight, and hopefully demystifying the world of Creative Commons along the way, one song at a time. You can find Radio B-Sides wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, visit the website at bsots.com. That's BSOTS.com.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Q Points, dropping the needle on Black music history. My name is Jay Ray. That is my brother DJ Sir Daniel right there. And and shout out to Jason Randall Smith of Radio B-Sides. Radio B-Sides is an amazing podcast, and be sure to check it out wherever you listen to podcasts. So shout out to you, Jason. So one of the things we wanted to cover, so if you followed us last week, you kind of are seeing a pattern. We are, for our next few shows, we are spending some time talking about these pillars of Black music, like Sir Daniel mentioned, in particular, these Black men. The reason why these men are important is because you don't hear their voices on radio anymore. But these were voices that you would regularly hear. And when we say voices, we're not talking about them specifically, because their music is actually still being heard on the radio. But what we're talking about is in contemporary music, you don't have voices like theirs on the radio, right? And so today's show, we wanted to spend some time talking about Sir Daniel, you said this is the right word for this, brother. The iconic Isaac Hayes. You know, Isaac Hayes, for Sir Daniel and I, is one of those artists that was with us our entire lives, right? And I know that for me specifically, when I was a kid and I would be flipping through my dad's record collection, his covers always jumped out at me. We're going to talk about why that's true a little bit later. But even when you drop the music, it was a whole other game. So couple of things I want to pull out. So Isaac Hayes was born in Tennessee. That explains a lot because when I feel like, Sir Daniel, when you listen to this music, it's like dripping with that thing that happens in the South. You know, I lived in the South for a long time. You live in the South currently. You know what I mean? Like there is a thing that's in it.
For him specifically, there's that, it's dripping with Jim Crow. It's dripping with heat, literal heat. It's dripping with, the changing climate. It's dripping with the war, because the war was going on. And, hunger, all these things, civil rights, all of these different movements were happening all at the same time. So a musician, this man is a full musician. A musician like Isaac Hayes is in fact experiencing all of that and is going to channel it, and of course is going to come out into the music.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that I loved in going back and doing some of the history of Isaac Hayes, Stax is such an important label. I feel like we just need to do a show on Stax Records. That could probably be mini shows, right?
Absolutely. Isn't there a documentary? I want to say
there is a documentary on the label. Actually, I think it's on the musicians specifically that played in the studio there. But of course, so Isaac Hayes recorded for Stax, and at the beginning, what he was doing was the songwriting. So Stax had a legendary group of session musicians and this amazing crack songwriting team, of which Isaac Hayes was a part, right? So 2 songs jumped out at me immediately when I think of, Isaac Hayes as a songwriter, and they're both Sam and Dave songs. So Soul Man, classic. Hold On, I'm Coming goes from here to Memphis.
I just hate that I associated with that terrible movie that came out in the 80s.
Oh,
you know which one I'm talking about.
With Ray Dawn Chong and them,
and all the blackface makeup going on. Yeah, but please continue.
Yes. So Isaac Hayes, of course, spent his years in the early 1960s writing these beautiful songs, and then had the opportunity to, of course, release his own music. So his first record, which is interesting, I never heard his first record at all. It wasn't in my dad's collection. I didn't remember it. I know now why I don't remember it. It's a very different kind of record. So it's kind of more like a jam session, and it's I guess you would describe it as jazzy. It's different. So I didn't hear that record. So his first record happens. It doesn't do well commercially. And at the same time, Stax started to go through a lot. So I think they lost their rights to their back catalog to Atlantic Records. Always happens, right? So they lost the rights to their back catalog to Atlantic. And it was just a bunch of other stuff that was happening with the label. So eventually, apparently the head of the label, this sounds crazy to me, said he wanted in 1 year in 1968 to have 27 releases. Right. Of which Isaac Hayes' second record was in that group of things. I think was it 68? Yeah, 68. So 69 was his second album. Isaac Hayes' second record, which we named this live after, Hot Buttered Soul, was in that crop. Now, that record includes the insane remix of Walk On, the insane remake of Walk On By, which is a whole other thing. When you listen to Walk On By Isaac Hayes, you would not know that that was the same Walk On By that Dionne Warwick sang like a couple of years prior. It's a totally different song with the same lyrics. That's what musicians
did. You know, they had to put your stamp on it because, and you know, with his voice being in the basement,
you
know, and the heavy tone that it carried, you know, of course he had to create a different kind of soundscape and tell a different story than what Dionne was telling.
And taking that sound, so there's a couple of really important things too that I want people to be aware of. The Bar-Kays was playing on this record too. So these records were not just about, of course, the artist up front, right? All of that backing band made a huge difference in what Isaac Hayes was doing was he was creating his sound. Now, he didn't produce this record. He actually didn't start producing his music until the next record, which he called the Isaac Hayes movement. And here is when I realized Isaac Hayes, no one does this in music anymore. So I have a question for you in a second, Sir Daniel. Isaac Hayes is a storyteller. There are so many songs when he's just like talking, he's literally just in front of the mic telling a story. And just that's the song. Right. You know, he's the narrator, you know, and we used to have a little bit more of that where, you know, before the song got in, you know, they was going to give you a little, I got to tell you why this song is happening. Why don't you think we get that anymore? Because we don't get that anymore.
Well, for one, we just don't have the attention span for it anymore. Sure. And I think we're probably just so inundated with people telling stories now outside of music that I think a narration to start off a song anymore is just so foreign. Like, remember last week, the last episode we were discussing how we were discussing who were we talking about?
Teddy Pendergrass.
Teddy Pendergrass. The last episode we were talking about Teddy Pendergrass and how I have trepidation about playing those songs because of that. Because there might be some narration at the beginning, because the voices are so deep and people just aren't used to that anymore. But I live for it, especially if it's a good story. Now, the best narration that people still love to this day is, "Hello, Barbara.
Barbara.
This is Shirley. You don't know me." I think people live for that. I think, and we
that's
all
mess.
It's mess. And we all rap along with it and say it. But you know, we grew up with Burl Ives, we grew up with Isaac Hayes, so we were used to that. Even in the TV theme songs. Remember the theme song for The Fall Guy?
Oh,
That was all
yeah.
narration,
Yes.
and the very end that he didn't start actually singing. So
Mm-hmm.
you have people like that work with Isaac, like Millie Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
that did a lot of talking, a lot of narration and storytelling in their records. So they didn't have social media. They barely had 3 channels back then, and they had one telephone company. So if you were to tell a story and to spread some, some tea,
Yes.
on your record was the best way to do it.
Mm.
And at the live show.
Right. So, because I think the other way that Isaac Hayes, in particular, you see this in these early years, because we're about to talk about Shaft in a minute, because we can't not. Particularly in these early years, you start to see the lush orchestration. It's funny, Carlton mentioned Barry White in the chat. He's another one. Barry is, stay for Barry, because we're talking about him next week. So, but Isaac did the same thing. So there was the Memphis Horns and the Memphis Symphony Orchestra that started to show up on these Isaac Hayes records. Because listen, y'all, these were records with like 4 songs. It would be like a 14-minute song. And it would transition. It would be orchestrated. This was music. These were compositions. Okay. Which is why, saying that out loud, which is why so many of these songs could be sampled and the samples sound so different, because the songs had different moods in one song.
Absolutely. And, since we're leading into Shaft and storytelling, like his music lent perfectly to cinematography for creating a mood, for creating tension in a scene, and for creating just it was all iconic to this day. When you hear, just hearing the where you know what's up, what that gives. You get into a certain stance, you get into a pimp, a gangster lean, because all of that is wrapped into the imagery that was created in the movies and the Shaft movies. And then that whole let's just talk about the whole era of blaxploitation.
Yep.
And for better or for worse, the beauty that came out of the blaxploitation era.
Yeah. So, and I think what the soundtrack to Shaft did is it did give us, even just, I can imagine, I wasn't alive during that time, but walking through the communities, giving folks their own soundtracks to walk to, their own soundtracks to the lives that they may have been living in Black community at the time. Because when you listen to the Shaft soundtrack, which is expansive and beautifully orchestrated, which makes sense as to why it endures for so long. This gave Black folks, like, this is when I enter the room, I want this to play.
And full circle moment, Isaac Hayes created that for Shaft, and then years later, fast forward to I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, he appeared in that, which was a send up of blaxploitation movies. However, the hero of I'm Gonna Get You Sucker had a whole band walking behind him, and they said, "Hey, who are these guys?" "Oh, that's my theme music." So he legit, we get it. It's like when somebody is walking, if you want to feel like a superhero, you think back on an Isaac Hayes and him and his orchestra creating music for when you step, you hear the hi-hats playing, and when we start running, you hear the horns blowing, because it's giving chase, it's giving attention, it's giving tension and whatnot. So we have him to thank for that, along with that orchestra. And giving yourself superhero music in the time in which those brothers were living. Like I said, they were straight out of Jim Crow, straight out of the civil rights movement, and still fighting to be respected in this country while there was a war going on across the world, and that we were fighting in, and people were coming home strung out, addicted. There wasn't any jobs for them to come back to and to work and to feel respected, and you still have to deal with racism here. So here comes this man, this big black bald dark-skinned bald man that at some point, thank you, Mark McPherson, actually showed up in front of the cameras as Truck Turner. And listen, I could go on about Truck Turner and Michelle Nichols, and that's my favorite scene, but we're not going to get into that. But imagine that is created for you. You think that's created for you, and you get that record, and you get that music in your head. Imagine that music kept some brothers alive, kept their heads above water, kept them going down to the job and sticking it to the man. Just by surviving, because you had to stick it to the man back then and survive, and not be no jive turkey and fall for no jive rat.
So true. We still need to stick it to the man. I do want to acknowledge, because you just said, in terms of thinking about the black men listening to this, because I know for a fact, like, this was a song that would regularly play in my house when I was a kid. Also, Isaac's voice, I know that we mentioned that importance, right, of us doing this show around these men and these voices that we don't hear. That's affirming to hear this beautiful orchestration and a voice that sounds like yours situated right in the center of it, telling stories about a life that you can relate to. That is incredibly powerful, because it shows the complexity and the beauty that we inhabit, I think, as black men.
Well put. Love that. And as we continue this discussion about Isaac Hayes and his stamp, iconic stamp in music, and like I mentioned, he actually showed up in front of the cameras, because he was again a very statuesque man.
Yeah.
That also had an impact on our fashion.
Yes.
And the way brothers were carrying themselves. Like we alluded to it when we were talking about the dearly departed Rudolph Isley and all of his brothers. And you look at J-Ray, you look at those album covers, those brothers were not scared to go there with the fashion, right? Isaac Hayes was right there with him. Isaac Hayes would come out in a chainmail shawl, all gold, no shirt on. So imagine when white America has this image on their televisions, because he had television specials where he, and he appeared in live television music performances where he would be bare chested, fitting pants, bald head, all of those things, those types of images had an impact. And, for the young people that are listening, that's why you hear the OGs and the old heads constantly talking about the way young men today carry themselves. And I see the juxtaposition, and I also see the similarities in the way young men are dressing. Some of them are choosing to dressing. It has some similarities to the way a lot of those brothers and the chances those brothers took with their fashions back then as well. So there's some of that. Then there's, on the other end where it doesn't feel like a sense of pride. And I think that's what people are responding to, because when they saw an Isaac Hayes on television, they felt a sense of pride and they threw their fist up and was like, right on. I relate to that, and I see that. And so I think there's a lack of balance today. Maybe that's what it is, and people don't see enough balance anymore. And I think that's what people are always reacting to when it comes to young people and the way they dress and carry themselves.
I absolutely agree with you, because I do see the similarities as well. And I think one of the things that we do here on Q Points and that we think is really important is to acknowledge those folks that have influenced us, right? And to call their names. And it may be true that a lot of folks don't recognize, like, oh, that's kind of been done. Like that thing that you're doing is a thing that's already been done before. And and Isaac Hayes probably did that already.
Yeah.
But they may not know. And so hopefully they listen to this show and then they go back, and not only do they revisit these incredible albums, but they also, which he had like 7 #1 albums in a row. It's crazy.
Wow.
So, they not only go back and revisit these albums, but they go back and look at the images. So I mentioned earlier that when I would go through my dad's record collection, I would always get caught up in the Isaac Hayes covers. So there was like the Hot Buttered Soul cover where he has like the baldy, but you can't really see his face, but there's like a gold thing or whatever happening. There is the black one. I had never heard the phrase Black Moses until an Isaac Hayes album. That was like, whatever do you mean?
No, but think about it. Think about who Moses is in a biblical sense.
Yep.
And that kind of comparison, that's heavy.
It's heavy. And showing up on the cover, fully sunglasses, of course, it's Isaac Hayes, and head covered, like wrapped in a hood, and just looking into the sun. As a photographer, these are things that inspired me. But it was so funny. One of the covers that I will never forget, oh shoot, it's the Cookie record. Which record is that? I can't remember the name of this record. It was actually, I think, the last #1. But anyway, Isaac Hayes is on the front cover. I'm gonna pull what record this is. It's called Chocolate Chip. That was why. Okay. And he's on the front cover. It is all black. You can hardly see Isaac. There's like a little illumination. You can see his brown skin, and he's holding a chocolate chip cookie that he is eating. And I remember, as a kid, I remember thinking that was like so cool to have this brother like eating this cookie on this album cover. Saying all this to say, I'm saying all this to say is that this man was giving us blackness and like just giving it to us, and not like mixing, like just being fly and being like a black man and just giving us that. And that's dope.
And with that, with giving us an image, you can't just give us an image. You have to give us something with some depth, right? And so the music is what he did that with. And I think a lot of, aside from the types of voices, we're missing an emotional depthness, an emotional maturity that came across a lot in these records, in these bodies of work. Because not only was he able to present in this form of masculinity and Black pride, but the music also spoke to a tenderness, a softness that kind of, you look and you're like, can those two things live together? Somebody that looks like that and have, and express himself so deeply. Like we said, if he's singing Walk On By, and Walk On By, you listen to the lyrics, Walk On By is really a song about a love lost, but holding on to your pride and holding on to your, keeping your head up. And for a lot of women, that's an anthem, but you can turn around as a man and sing it and make it for an anthem for men as well. That takes a depth an adeptness that and a skill that um Isaac Hayes possessed, and a lot of men of his ilk and his era were able to weave into their music and to ask for forgiveness, to ask for tenderness, to ask for a set some breasts to lay their head on, so because of the burdens of the world out there, and that the vulnerability that he was able to present to us is something that is sorely missed in a lot of especially R&B music. And thank God we have his archives to listen to get that. But like I said, it's kind of hard to weave that in sometimes, or you just have to pick the really right moment to weave that in a set nowadays, especially when you're trying to appeal to different age groups. But trying to weave in an Isaac Hayes, and a Teddy Pendergrass, even though they're iconic and people love their music, I think there's something that people are afraid to feel nowadays, because feelings cost too much nowadays.
Yeah, that is powerful. And so to that point, maybe one of the things that folks can take away, because I do think as I was getting ready for this show, going back and listening to these songs gave me kind of a warm and fuzzy feeling. You know what I'm saying? Listening to some of them. And it's really interesting. I was telling Sir Daniel when we were getting ready for the show, we picked this show. I was like, I haven't spent a ton of time in Isaac Hayes' catalog. So I did that in preparation for this show. And I knew Walk On By had happened, but I didn't realize he did all these other like Hal David and Burt Bacharach songs, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, I get this now. It is so I what my hope is that maybe folks will listen to this show, go back and play some of these Isaac Hayes joints and see how he presented the work, and the way he was able to have these conversations. And maybe it'll just give some folks some ideas, because I agree with you. I do think it's hard to get that kind of emotion from men in. Women do it all the time. I think it's hard to get it in from men. But I think listening to folks like Isaac Hayes show it's possible.
Absolutely. And, I'm thankful that Carlton let us know about his cover of Billy Joel's Just the Way You Are. I'm going to check that out because I love that song. Going from presenting music in the 60s throughout the 70s, and putting his stamp on cinema and music and just American culture, to then come around in the late 90s and be reintroduced, reinvented as a very how do we describe the animation of South Park? Very what's the word I'm looking for? Primitive.
Okay, that's a good word.
Primitive, very primitive animation, but the impact that South Park had on the culture is to this day still, casts a ripple effect. But our very own Isaac Hayes was a part of that phenomenon and able to, I don't know, just make himself present and make it fit.
Yeah.
And make it, take the material he was given, and make us laugh and make us, realize, think to yourself, this is Isaac Hayes standing behind a microphone, voicing Black Chef.
Yeah.
And being referred to as Black Chef.
That was dope to me. I remember being really into South Park, and particularly in those early years, because
Absolutely.
It's completely irreverent.
And we were in our early 20s, so
right.
We were still, you grew up on fart jokes, so those kinds of things. You're still 13. You're 23, but you're still 13.
Right. And so But I would say the thing that I found dopest about it was I do feel like it inserted Black culture into this like really white show. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And not only inserted Black culture, it was like, no, this is like Isaac Hayes. Like, you know, he did Shaft and
The
Hot and Buttered
Blackest.
Soul. Like, this is the Blackest, right? That's now in this show. And going back to that tenderness, that emotion piece, you have to be willing to make fun of yourself in order. He had to be willing to stand in front of the microphone and make fun of the type of music or the type of image that he portrayed in this.
Right.
And that takes a lot of self-awareness and just not taking yourself super seriously, but also taking yourself very seriously.
Right, because it was a performance of Blackness that a lot of consumers of South Park felt comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a performance. It was fun and funny. It was really, like you said, he was able to make fun of it, but we still took it seriously, and we even got treats of him singing on the show.
Yep.
And even though it was funny singing about his salty balls,
that will never not be funny.
It still cracks J. Ray up to this day. Singing about his salty balls and put them in your mouth. You can't not laugh at that. But I was happy for the fact that he was introduced to a whole new generation, and his legacy was still looming on, even up until when he became severely ill, and fell to succumb to a stroke and subsequently passed away. But I think that was like the last bit of Isaac Hayes that we could hold on to, and I just remembering that we could laugh about it. But you know what, J. Ray, we can't negate that there was something else that was very funny that was associated with Isaac Hayes' music. And he J. Ray and I have this theory that Isaac Hayes, and we both said it at the same time, Isaac Hayes inspired what we refer to today as porn music.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like,
Shaft, totally.
when you hear certain guitar twanging, you automatically think of 70s erotic movies, right? And I can't help but think we have Isaac Hayes to thank for that, because a lot of those composers, because pornography, and especially in the 70s, was created like films, like actual movies, and they cared about having a soundtrack. Yes. They cared about having a score to their erotic movies. And so, when you think about eroticism, what does America automatically dip into or go to? They go to Black culture.
They immediately go to Black culture.
Immediately go to Black men.
Yep.
And the essence of Black men, and put that on a film, in the music, even though there's no Black people present, right, you still get the essence of Blackness and the sensuality that comes along with that. And that comes, talking about porn. Yes, we are talking about erotic movies and how you feel when you hear that music. And it's also an extension of the Blaxploitation movies as well.
Yeah.
And so for better or for worse, Isaac Hayes, we have him to thank for that. And to this day, when you hear
it's either Isaac Hayes or porn.
Or Isaac, same thing.
So, you know what? Since we're here, y'all let us know, because Sir Daniel knows this. I've been dying to talk about. We would have to do it super secret behind the Q Points wall for those of you that want to participate in this conversation. But I would love to talk about the soundtrack of Lala. So Bernard Purdie did that soundtrack, and it is the soundtrack to the first Black porn film. This soundtrack goes so hard. You want to talk about going?
Wait, it goes
not
hard,
goes hard like that. Goes hard like music. Okay. If y'all want us to do that show and you want to participate in that conversation to learn about that soundtrack, let us know. Shoot us a message. Let us know. Put it in the chat because it could be really cool. Bernard Purdie put his foot in that thing. Not like that.
You know what? I'm so proud of us for not saying pause because we're grown. We can talk about sex.
We grown. We can talk about this.
We're not scared to go there with y'all. But yes, I think that would be an absolutely phenomenal idea. And yeah, you know, remember J. Ray, the weirdness that was surrounding Isaac Hayes when he was, you know, towards the end of his life and his association with Scientology?
I forgot, actually. That is literally, until you mentioned it as we were getting ready to do the show. So this is as we were coming on, Sir Daniel mentioned this and I forgot. So literally was like, damn, that was the thing that happened. Yes.
It definitely happened. And as a matter of fact, rumor had, well, according to his son, Isaac Hayes III, the Scientologists are the ones that got Isaac Hayes taken off of South Park because of the association. Well, South Park wasn't afraid to go there and make fun of everybody, including Tom Cruise and including the religion of Scientology. And if you know anything about Scientology, they're very secretive and it's very cult-like in its practices. And of course, they wield a lot of power and they don't like people speaking negatively about them. But just knowing, you know, there's a few Black celebrities that are involved or rumored to have been involved in Scientology. So every time you hear about one, J. Ray, it's like, word? You a Scientologist?
Two of them are in the news right now.
We're not even going.
We're not going there.
Nope. Nope. Y'all have heard enough about those two. But we just wanted to take this episode to, you know, pay homage to the man, the whole man, because that's what he represented, a whole man, in that he could show us all of his different sides, from the gruff militant exterior to the sensual, seductive musician to a comedic actor. You know, Isaac Hayes was all of that for us.
Yeah, he did it all and also provided for us as lovers of hip hop, as we, of course, continue to celebrate hip hop's 50th anniversary in 2023. Isaac Hayes has provided the foundation of a lot of hits in hip hop, just incredibly dope songs. So I don't know what Sir Daniel's about to say. He doesn't know what I am about to say, but we have a question for one another. And the question is, what is your favorite hip hop song with an Isaac Hayes sample? And so I'm going to ask you, Sir Daniel, what's your favorite one? And then I will tell you mine.
My favorite Isaac Hayes sample is Ike's Mood. And that is featured predominantly in Biz Markie's Make the Music with Your Mouth, Make the Music with Your Mouth, Biz, and Mary J. Blige's I Love You.
Yep.
That's my absolute favorite Isaac Hayes sample. Which one is yours?
I almost picked that for I Love You, but I didn't pick that. I picked a song that I've talked about already twice on the show, Walk On By. So Warning by the Notorious B.I.G. samples. So that version, I'm telling y'all, if you've never heard it, which is crazy if you're listening to Q Points and have never heard it, but that's why you're here apparently, go and listen to the Isaac Hayes. Play the Dionne Warwick version of Walk On By, which is amazing, and go and play the Isaac Hayes version of Walk On By, which is also amazing. Same foundation, two totally different songs. But the Isaac Hayes Warning by Biggie with that Walk On By sample is sick, and that is my favorite. Let us know, for those of you joining us, listening or watching, what is your favorite song with an Isaac Hayes sample? Let us know.
Leave the comments in the YouTube chat, all of that stuff. We definitely want to hear. So thank you for listening to us go on about Isaac Hayes. As we said, we are going to give some other brothers flowers as well in this series of iconic Black men singers on this episode of Q Points Podcast, this Q Points Podcast series. And so as we wrap up, J. Ray, at the top of the show, I mentioned that, things have been really kind of heavy, and heavy in the world, as we don't even have to say what's going on. If you're existing, what's going on, what's happening outside of this country. Jerry, I have been finding solace. I have to publicly thank, and she may never ever hear this, but I have to publicly thank comedian, writer, actress Francesca Ramsey for keeping me in stitches this week. J-Ray, I don't know if you've seen it, but Francesca does the spot on, almost scary impersonations, singing, mind you, of people like Britney Spears, Jessica Simpson, and Fergie. When I tell you, Francesca Ramsey is clearly a Black woman, but when I tell you, when she does, and she's done these on TikTok and on her Twitter, she'll do a side-by-side of the original performance of the singer singing their song, but she'll mute it and she'll be singing, and she knows all the lyrics, the inflections. I mean, it is hilarious. I was in stitches when she was this performance of Jessica Simpson singing "Take My Breath Away." I was inconsolable, Jerry. I was in so many tears just laughing, and I was just so thankful to have run across Francesca's TikToks and her Twitter feed, and it really took me out of the little funk that I was in, and gave me something to laugh at, because that chicken of the sea lady, she really played in our faces in the early 2000s. Like, those girls got away with a lot of murder when it comes to singing.
They did. We gave Jessica Simpson so much. That's all I'm gonna say on that. I will say, okay, we gave Fergie way too much. I will say this is a tangent of that era. Jennifer Page's Crush, though, that song still sends me.
Slaps.
Jennifer Page is down there from Atlanta. She is about as white can be, and Crush by Jennifer Page sends me over.
So that, and then don't follow it up with Natalie Imbruglia.
I knew you was gonna say it. Torn by Natalie Imbruglia. You want to see Black people go up? Play them back to back.
But listen, before we head up out of here, J. Ray, please let the people know one more time the most important thing about Q Points and how they could be a part of all of this madness and joy that we have to give.
Yes, the most important thing that you can do is do what you're doing. You are here. You are listening to us. Listen and subscribe. That is free. You can do us a solid and share it with your friends and family. That is also free. If you are listening to Q Points, they will probably enjoy Q Points too. You could join our mailing list. It's also very free to join. And that's a great way to stay up with us. Visit our website, qpoints.com, hit the subscribe button. You can become a subscriber. And just like, support your boys. The easiest way to do it, though, is to do the easiest thing. And that is listen, subscribe, and share.
Absolutely. So listen, we're about out of here. We have thoroughly enjoyed this episode, bringing it to you. Please, if you're in Baltimore, make sure you check out Afros and Audios and come say hi. We're going to be doing a presentation. I'm super excited about that. And yeah, continue sticking it to the man and don't be no jive turkey.
Who is the man?
Shaft. You know who he is. So with that being said, what do I always say, J. Ray? In this life, we have a choice. We can either turn the music up, take that needle off, or we can let the record play.
Wait a minute. Who?
I know.
I'm like, what? You can either turn that needle off or pick up the music or do something.
Listen, I'm improvising. You're supposed to go along with it. Pick up the needle or let the record play. I'm DJ Sir Daniel.
My name is J. Ray.
And this has been Q Points Podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history. We will see you on the next go round, suckers.